Danny Hanna, welcome to Property Insights, mate.
Thank you. Good
now,
to be here.
You've been around a long time, 40 years of experience in the property development construction industry. You're the CEO of Hannas, which is, I guess, is you or your parents, is your business?
I started with Dad.
You started with your dad? Yeah. So, you guys, you've just about stuck your toe into every part of the property industry, but it says in here, industrial, residential and commercial sectors, core focus on design, excellence, innovation, integrity. I think probably the most important thing for our audience, though, is this very curious for most people and a little bit confusing for most people, industrial sector. It's even for me, like I've never invested in industrial before. So
sure.
But I hear all these great stories about it, how people making fortunes out of it. Take me through it. What's it about?
Yeah, obviously today industrial is a well-recognised asset class. Whereas if you look back 20 years ago, when the e-commerce, I guess, started to take shape, there was a focus on industrial because it was if you like, it was the new retail, the way we see it. So, with the purchasing through internet and so forth, the drop shipping then became bigger. I mean, today it's huge, but it started to get momentum, and it was generally happening in the larger warehousing, and as more and more people got involved with the e-commerce business, it started to change things. So it started to become more, I guess, familiar to people, and knowing that industrial is the backbone of our economy.
You're right, Danny. Investors probably become more familiar with it, but the general public, as an investment asset class, as an asset class to invest in, probably haven't really taken a seat back, and I'm one of them, haven't really taken a moment to think about how the purchase of goods has actually restructured, in that we don't anywhere near as often go into a shop to buy something. We don't go to David Jones like we used to. We don't go to Grace Brothers doesn't exist anymore, Myer, whatever it is, like we used to. Now we buy stuff online, and probably I don't know what the numbers are, but probably half and half the stuff gets bought online these days. But what people don't think about is that hang on a minute, it's got to come from somewhere. And let's say it gets made in, for argument's sake, Italy, because it's an Italian suit. Or gets made in China because it's something that comes out of China. It's got to come from that country. It's got to land somewhere. It's got to be stored somewhere, and then it's going to get shipped to your home. And I often said to people, like, one of the great businesses that have come off the back of online buying is the courier business or the delivery business, logistics basically, or what they call the last mile.
Last mile, correct.
But before the last mile, there's, I don't know what they call that, but there's the warehouse and where it gets stored. And is that what you mean? Is that one of the reasons that industrial has grown tremendously?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously the Amazons of the world have these huge warehouses, right? But, as more and more people got online, there were people that, had a little shop. And I mean, this happened in particular during COVID, where, people would be importing a product, and that could be small businesses, and their business just exploded through the internet. And so they found themselves from, working out of, sometimes the back of a garage or a small warehouse, an industrial, warehouse, having to find, go out to the market and look for something instead of 100 square meters, 400, 500 square meters, because their business just grew exponentially. So that is a market where the institutions never came down to, and they can't, right? So we found...
The institutional investors, you mean?
No, instos basically who predominantly owned all the bigger, I mean, the REITs, as we know, sort of started to come into the market some 15, 20 years ago. Before that, it was mainly private developers, that would develop, industrial stock. And then when the REITs started to change out, and really the REITs started in Australia, then we exported that model. And so...
That's a real estate investment trust.
Correct. Yes. Correct. So, the REITs then started to come into the market as it became an asset class, that people wanted to weigh into. So they came down to, if you like, anything under sub 5 wasn't
500?
5,000 square
5,000
meters.
square meters, wow.
Square meters. And we have found that, that's a sweet spot for us.
Just below 5,000.
Below 5,000, right. Yeah. From 100 square meters up to 5,000, where the instos don't want to play. We tried to compete with the institutions. We found as a private business, they've got very deep pockets. They're raising capital through the markets. So we thought, look, let's not play in that space. Let's find our little niche. And we thought that, the sub 5,000 square meter spaces were the place we wanted to be. And then we took the view that, the market's changed so significantly, Mark, that people are spending a lot of time in the warehouses. So what I thought we needed to do is bring a flavour of a bit of residential touch to it, where, you put a communal bathroom with showers done nicely in a, if you like, an industrial estate. I mean, we're doing the 3-story product, where you've got some storage units where people can come and use as like the Kennards or, Miller's storage. So they can buy their own strata, which traditionally you couldn't do.
That's consumers.
Consumers, yeah. The consumer, the investor, super funds. We've had a lot of people buying the super funds. They're 300,000, 400,000, 200,000. So it's quite easy for them to just put their super in there. It's a real estate asset. And use it as storage, and they can charge their super. So it's a good tax, initiative. And then we obviously doing the, ranges of 100 up to sort of 300 square meters over the next 2 levels. And we're giving the user, or the owner of the strata space, just a nice environment. So, we're giving them the glass, curtain walls and, the nice fit out internally, polishing the concrete.
And what are they putting in there?
Mate, we've got a multitude of users. So we've got, to be honest with you, there's a lot of them that have been purchased to park supercars. Funny enough.
Really?
Yeah.
Like a garage.
Yeah, literally. A lot of man caves, people have put their a poker table in there, snooker room. We've had a lot of drop shipping businesses, electrical, a lot of trade through the construction sector. People are using it for printing. So, and we've found the mix about 50-50 between investor and owner occupier. So when I say there's a shift from retail, people traditionally used to own retail to run certain businesses, whereas now we're finding that industrial is where they want to be. They can work around the clock. They're not restricted. They can drive right up to it. I think logistically it's just a lot easier to run their business.
It's interesting how society evolves. And we've evolved from shopping retail, as I said earlier, in strip shops or not strip shops, I should say, in strip
malls or
strip malls or shopping centres. To now buying a lot of stuff online. But at the end of the day, we're still buying goods, physical goods. And it could be clothes, whatever it is. And they've all got to be stored somewhere. And one of the things I was thinking about more recently was I was looking around Alexandria and those sorts of areas which have just absolutely boomed when it comes to residential buildings. But all those residential buildings are now on the top of what used to be blokes I know who used to own garment businesses where they used to manufacture garments. And a lot of these old garment rag traders had bought these massive big warehouses in a place like Alexandria. But as our population increased, the demand to live near cities or closer to the city became a big thing, and these guys have made an absolute fortune out of their industrial properties because they've now been replaced by residential, where you got a lot more
uplift,
a lot more stuff on it. Big value add, but those people still have to find somewhere to be. So now they're going to move further out.
Correct.
And that's sort of they're the industrial estates that are being built today.
Correct.
To house those, or not house, but to help those people warehouse whatever it is they're warehousing.
Yeah, so yes, you're right. I mean, through the whole rezone process of these close proximity to the city areas like Alexandria is a perfect example.
Alexander, Waterloo,
Zetland, all of that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that all used to be, 25, 30 years ago, as you know, it was all industrial, predominantly industrial. All of that's been pushed out. But the smaller users, so that's what we do. We go into infill sites, like we're currently doing one in Northmead, right next to the Westmead Hospital, and we have one in Brookvale, right in the centre behind Westfields there. So we look at pockets where they are not serviced. For an example, like Alexandria, we've been looking at Alexandria to be able to provide a product there to service those people that want to be in Alexandria, that are travelling from down south or from the east that don't want to go too far out west. They are very hard to come by. But yeah, so those people have been pushed out. The bigger users obviously have been pushed out west. And then you find that there are smaller pockets of industrial strata buildings now that are going up. And hence why I'm saying now there's a lot more knowledge amongst traditional investors that would normally buy residential that are going into the industrial sector because it's been advertised, a lot more.
Well, they become aware of it.
They become aware of it, right? So, I mean, when we launched a project that we did out of Greystanes, Bluestone, so, we were told back in 2017, oh, look, this is industrial, you can't market it, you've got to build it first and then you've got to show it to people. And we said, no, we're going to take the approach of residential. We'll walk
pre-sale.
Pre-sale. Yeah, so we want to de-risk it, obviously. So we went ahead and did really great CGIs so we can show a mum and dad, this is what it's going to be.
CGI in computer-generated images.
Correct. And so that way, people can just get their head around it. They can understand how you drive in, where the car park is, and so forth. And, mate, it was a great success. We sold 50% off the plan. The agents were all surprised. And now we're finding a lot of the people developing this are doing exactly the same now.
How does, as I said, I've never bought industrial before, but how do you value industrial? I know how I would value commercial and retail, but how do you value it? Do you is it a known square meterage rate in the area, or is it a yield-based process? I mean, how do you work out what something's worth?
Yeah, look, it's normally per square metre. When you purchase, you generally ask the agent what it is a square metre. If you're an investor and you want to buy something with the view to selling it down in a few years.
What about renting it though? Let's say I want to buy it to rent it out.
Sure. So you'd rent it on a yield, for an example, of today between 4 and 5% yield.
Right.
And the larger units, may attract a little bit more, but so you would sell it on a yield. Otherwise, you would, vacate it at the end of the lease and sell it because owner-occupiers, you'll find that will pay a premium as opposed to buying it on a yield. So traditionally, the smaller stuff, you will buy it not on a yield. You will buy it as a vacant possession.
So when there's if I'm selling something, has the world sort of changed a little bit in terms of buyers? Buyers have new expectations as to what they want in terms of the amenities at the industrial, let's call it an industrial estate where I'm just selling, say, one strata. They're saying, listen, these days, Mark, I'm a buyer. I expect to get, like you were talking about, a drive up car spot that goes right to the thing, or a hoist or something along those lines. I mean, it were a certain type of concrete, polished concrete, for example, a finish.
Yeah. Yeah, look, they are. Their expectation has been lifted certainly over the last 3-4 years. There's been some developments such as ours that have come to the market and that really have lifted the bar. And for an example, we do a drop down area for a container. So you can come along if there's 30 units on the top floor. You can come in, you can drop a container off, and you can book it. That area you can unload for
like
a drop
loading
off.
dock.
It's a loading dock, yeah. So they'll bring a container in, they'll have it for 4 hours or 8 hours, whatever time they need to unload it, and put it in their warehouse, sort it to obviously dispatch it again. So we create that. That never used to be around back in the day. And as I say, we provide facilities, communal facilities. So if people have, visitors come to see them, they can use a facility of communal toilets and showers.
Yeah, so toilets, etc.
Yeah.
And there's a 24-hour access to them.
Yes.
Is there a general requirement? And what about security?
Mate, we've got cameras in all our estates. Everything is alarmed generally, and it's with fobs. So you can only get in if you don't have a fob. You got roller doors that keep you out of the estate. Certainly in the ones that we can close off, or we'll gate them. So yeah.
Is it, if you were to stand up a retail strata shop, like let's say there's a restaurant in this building and it's a a strata. The real estate is strated, so that particular restaurant is owned by whoever wants to own that particular strata within this total stratum.
Yep.
And if you were to line that up in terms of yield and risk, where does industrial sit? Does it sit behind retail, ahead of retail? Like today, what's your experience of that?
Mate, today I would certainly say that the risk would be less than what it would be with retail, without a shadow of a doubt.
Industrial would be less.
100%. I believe it's less risky asset than commercial, right? I mean, yeah, we all know industrial has gone through the roof for all the obvious reasons.
Well, no, I didn't know that. So
No.
I may not hear about it, but
Right.
So what do you mean by that? Has gone through the roof?
Well, I mean, you have, as I said, industrial now has become an asset class that's much more accepted and understood by the consumer.
Is that because consumers now can buy a strata, small piece, as
Yeah,
opposed to
correct.
having to buy the whole 5,000 square metres?
Correct. They can go and buy a little warehouse, whether they want to run their business, store, stuff in there. It's just, it's more, I guess, accessible to a lot more people now.
Can you actually go and run you actually can go inside, pull the roller door, wherever it is, securing, and run your business in there? Like you can operate out of there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's no drama? Like,
no, I mean, look,
do you have to get a
obviously,
council approval?
obviously, it depends on what you're going to do.
Let's say I'm packing boxes or something.
That's fine. That's what it's zoned for. So the zoning will allow you to do that. We've had some users come to us and wanting to rent and produce, chemical stuff. So they would have had to go through the council process to get approval. Exactly.
But that's not impossible to get, though.
No, correct.
it's
I mean,
zoned properly,
there
you
would
can-
be some requirements that the council would put on you that, would allow you to operate your whatever that business may be. But obviously not heavy industrial. It's light industrial.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. So, so you open up your world to tenants because of one, it's a sort of bite size. It's maybe 100 square meters. It's not like 5,000 square meters. So, not many people want to rent 5,000 square meters. All those who do are going to be pretty choosy. So you can get around 100 square meters. You can put different businesses inside there. You can run a business inside there. You can actually use it just for storage, as part of a business. You can you can do it as a personal use thing, as you said. Just park a few cars there if you want.
Yep.
And
all
it's secure.
hours, 7 days.
7 days.
So you get all that flexibility. You can go there 7 days. You can operate your business. You can go at night. So you're in an industrial area. So the working hours, especially if you're a business that like you're packing or unpacking boxes, you're not making noise. It's generally, like very, very easy to do all that.
So we're talking about, because I'm just trying to imagine what they look like. We're talking about one of those industrial estates, let's call it industrial estate, where you sort of come in off the main road or the road and you drive in and there's like a driveway, and then you can, and on each side of the road, there's
roller shutters,
an outlet, so to speak, or there's somebody operating from there or has their business there. Yeah. Because I've seen this in Byron Bay. There's a place in Byron Bay called the Byron Bay Industrial Estate. And you can go in there. They're only 3-story things, but you can buy them or lease them, and people just drive up and they have their business in there.
Yes, correct. That's the
coffee businesses and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, funny you mentioned that, because we've just bought the largest industrial block of land that the council has owned in 30 years. And that's a 5.5 hectare site.
In Byron Bay?
In Byron Bay, on Ewingsdale Road.
Yeah,
which is
near the industrial estate. Yeah, okay.
right on the roundabout there.
Yeah.
So we're in
near the brewery?
Yeah, we're across the road, literally.
On the other side?
On the other side.
Okay, yeah.
So
okay.
we've bought a 5.5 hectare site. We're putting a road through, a ring road, and then we're subdividing into 17 large lots. Well, when I say large, they range from 1,500 up to 10,000 square metres. So we are selling now vacant industrial land.
You sell the land?
We're selling just the industrial land. We're servicing it. So your services will be right up to your boundary.
Servicing being electricity, water,
power, sewer, and everything else. Yep. And then, the end user, whoever that may be, can come and just buy the land and then go to an architect, get their warehouse designed to suit, their needs, and up they go.
So what's the demand like for this?
Mate, it's been strong.
Yeah?
Over there, it's been very strong again because, as I said, 30 years, there's been no new land release to cater for the industrial market. We all know Byron Bay over the last 30 years has grown exponentially.
Totally.
So, so we were, very fortunate to be able to,
But are you getting mums and dads, or not mums and dads, mums and dads or little family super funds buying these things?
Yep. We're getting mums and dads buying them. We've had a childcare operator buy.
Like they'd actually put the the kids go there.
Yeah.
You drop the kids off there
literally,
while you can do that.
Yep. So they'll be allowed under the zoning to do that as well. And there's just a really tight market up in Byron, just given the growth to service that industry. Obviously, there's been no industrial. So we have found that a lot of the retailers, Mark, that have moved from the heart of Byron in town because
the clothes shops and stuff.
Well, mate, the rents have just gone through the roof.
Yeah.
So they've thought, well, we need to move out into a cheaper area. So they've gone and taken these industrial, older style warehouses, 200, 300, 400 square meters, but they've given them a lick of paint. They've changed the windows, and they've turned them into this really cool, funky, quasi retail outlet. And so you've got that's happened. Council cannot go and push them out and say, "Hang on, this is industrial. You're running retail," because they've got nowhere else to go.
It's funny because there's in the industrial estate in Byron Bay, there's actually a few really good restaurants opened up. There's one called Cuisina. It's a Greek restaurant. It's really great. I go there. There's a couple.
We can never get in there, by the way.
You can't get in.
It's always booked.
Yeah, because she's not open every day of the week. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's right. And she goes to Greece for 3 months.
Well, she's not doing it this year.
Oh, she's not?
No, she's not doing it. She told me because she's not going to go this year. But she's now doing lunches now as well.
Right.
It just started opening lunches. But there's a few gyms as well. A couple of gyms in the industrial estate, like MMA gyms and just your normal sort of gyms. And do you find that, and I don't want to concentrate on Byron Bay, but just generally, the only reason I'm saying Byron Bay because that's one I'm familiar with, but do you find that landlords over time, who invest in these properties, make as good a capital gain as they would do if they're buying residential and or commercial?
Mate, the last 4 years, they've made a lot more capital gain than they've made in any other class.
I'm trying to work out why, because I can see why industrial estate's a good yielding property. Like, in other words, you say, as you said, 4.5% yield. I mean, I've got a $100,000 property. I'm going to go charge $1 million property. I'm going to charge $40,000 a year. Got it. I understand that.
Yep.
So where's the yield coming, the capital gain out of it?
Mate, I'll tell you. So as we said earlier on, you got places like Alexandria, Northern Beaches, North. So all that industrial land has been rezoned.
Right.
So and then you've got all the institutions that have purchased up out west all the big parcels. Right. There's, call it half a dozen instos that have just locked up all the land.
Right.
So we find now, like, we get briefs to go out and, for a tenant that is looking to, we do a turnkey, solution for them. And mate, we can't even get our hands on a big parcel of land of 3 hectares because it's all been locked up by the instos. So you've got to go to the instos. So they've obviously driven the price up. They've gone in there very early. They've locked up all the prices. So you find now that all the areas that have been rezoned, Mark, that have now, these people have had to go and find new, warehousing, and the supply just wasn't there. So it just meant it was pressure on pricing. And the only thing that was going to give is prices on,
you got to pay overs.
You got to pay overs. That's just what it
So it sounds like it's not, given the boom in online retailing especially, and also population growth. I mean, just by definition, population means more. Sure. You need more storage.
Correct.
It sounds like we nearly have this similar sort of problem with industrial land as we have with residential. We just don't have enough.
That's correct.
Relative to our population, relative to the changes in the way we socially interact with online buying, etc.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the biggest year from memory that we delivered was about 37,000 homes, whereas today we need to be delivering 70,000, 80,000 homes a year. It's just that simple. So, it's now caught up to us, and it's a chronic shortage of residential, which is what's driving our rental, and which is obviously adding fuel to our inflation problem. And so it is exactly the same story with industrial. There's just not enough.
So where does it all go? Does it end up happening? Is this what ends up happening? We start to redistribute warehousing to places like Byron Bay or Coffs Harbour or wherever it is. I guess it's probably not, because then you've got to truck it to somewhere. There's logistics issues around those sorts of things. Or does it just go further out west? Or a new industrial land release out west?
Correct.
I mean, out near Badger's Creek or whatever it is, or even further out.
But that's for the big logistic users, right? So the bigger groups, will do that out there. The big logistic warehouses, the Samsungs of the world, and all the big I guess Amazons and all that. But whereas the smaller operators can't be out there for that reason, logistically, right? When you're trying to distribute quick to your customer, then you need to be close to where the area that you service.
So that's your niche.
That's our niche. So I mean, also what's really good about what product that we bring to the market for investors, this is Mark, is that with industrial, when you rent industrial, all outgoings are paid by the tenant.
Oh, that's the norm?
That's the norm. So
everything, land tax,
water,
right?
Everything, like strata fees, all the costs are all borne by the tenant.
And I'd imagine too, in an industrial estate where it's all strated, the portion of land tax that I would pay in my 100 square metres over a big block of land, which is industrial land, is probably not going to be that great because I'm only paying my small portion.
Correct.
And it's industrial land, it probably doesn't get the same valuation profile that residential land would get.
Correct.
And so the land tax probably not that big a deal, like relatively speaking, not a bigger problem.
Sure, yeah. But if you bought 300, 400 square metres in Alexandria, it is a big deal.
That's different.
It's expensive, right? So,
yeah, because there's a different land tax profile because the land valuation is much different.
Correct. So, but still, if you break it down and you just need 400 square metres, you're not having to be sitting on 1,000 square metres where your cost, authorities and so forth, it's very high. If you're able to buy the strata, you can run your business from a 400 square metres with only paying for 400 square metres. It's always, advantageous.
And when you guys are doing the macroeconomic or the macro analysis of your industry, of your game, that's industrial estates.
Yep.
What are the sort of things? What are the things that you're always interested in? Like, I guess population growth is a really important one. Like, are you looking at the population growth around the area? What are you looking at? The greater population growth, or what changes? What are important things for you in terms of benchmarking?
Well, I mean, obviously, high density areas for us, for our product. That's what we always look for.
High density. You mean res or high density?
Res,
right.
yeah. So we like the infill sites. So little pockets of industrial that service a particular area, and that's our sweet spot. Otherwise, when we're looking at big deals now, I mean, the way we look at it is that we need to get pre-commits from an end user before we can go out and just buy a big parcel of land. Just given the the growth that industrials had over the last 5 years, to land bank, like an institution does, it's very difficult.
It's impossible, especially given the premiums you're going to have to pay, which
exactly.
is what you're talking about because of the demand.
Exactly.
So Danny, what would you say to investors who are listening to this show now? How do they find out about, if they're interested in this sort of stuff, and we're just giving them a taste, but where do they find out more about, say, what you guys do and, where the value adds in terms of what I should buy, how I should invest, how do I find a tenant? Where do they find all this information from?
Mate, just contact Hannas.
Yeah, but is there a website?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a website.
What's it called?
A great website, just hannas.com.au.
HANNAS.com.au.
Yep, as.com.au. It's a great website. There's a lot of information there. And look, I guess these days, on Real Commercial and commercial.com.au, there's
they have industrial sections.
Absolutely, purely specific to industrial. So, I would encourage people to have a look at that if they're looking at just an investment, to have a look at industrial today before looking at residential, and it's a completely different market to what it was many years ago.
And do banks like to lend?
Absolutely
The same?
Well, I mean, the LVR,
95%.
the LVR will do, I think, 65%, 70%, obviously depending on, each individual's, creditworthiness. But, the banks are all for it.
They like it.
Absolutely. I mean, we're finding now the banks are really gearing towards just industrial developers today. So if you and I both went to a bank, they would definitely prefer to lend an industrial developer as opposed to a resi developer.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, finally, I guess, do borrowers, buyers, I should say, do they go through an agent I mean, is this,
Yeah.
or do they go direct?
No, I mean, they can come certainly direct to us.
Yep.
And alternatively, there are industrial agents.
Oh, there are.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. You know, the likes of Colliers, CBRE.
But they're big guys. And
yeah, they are,
You get
but-
a bit nervous when you go to those
Yeah,
organisations.
look, I mean, that's the thing. The perception of Colliers or CBRE of the world, you know, is that they do big, large transactions, but that's not the case. We have them on all our projects.
So when you're selling off your strata, and if let's say they're 100 square metre lots, you will use Colliers to do those.
Yeah, like typically, if Colliers brought the site to us, Mark,
You'll give it back to them.
we
to
would
sell.
give back to them the resale, and we would always engage also a local agent.
Right.
So a local commercial agent.
So there are such things as local commercial dash industrial agents.
Correct.
Like, and how do people find those people?
Mate, just you get on Google, you can just look up industrial agents, you know, whatever area that you're looking at, and but Real Commercial or commercial.com.au, that they, mate, you just put in whatever area you want and they'll take you straight there.
And Hanna's mostly New South Wales, or you're interstate?
New South Wales, obviously Byron Bay, and no, we're not. Well, we are looking to go up to Queensland. We have been looking for the last 12 months, just haven't found an opportunity.
And final question, Danny, what's hotter? Like, is it? I mean, you're talking about Byron Bay. Is it better to be in your regional areas, or better to be in the metro areas like Sydney? Just a personal opinion.
My personal opinion, I would personally stay in the metro, just because of market depth.
Right.
I
Like,
mean,
if I'm buying retail, I'm going to buy one of those 100 square metre lots. You
Industrial,
think your
yeah.
personal view is probably industrial
stay
in Sydney.
Yeah, I mean, look, Byron is a very unique regional area. I mean, it's great, and I think there's going to be a lot more growth. I think industrial as a whole is going to keep growing. I mean, we're achieving mark rates that some residential in Homebush are achieving on a box.
Wow.
Because they're in high demand, right?
Yeah, per square metre, you mean?
Per square metre. And of course, construction costs has gone up and it's going to continue to go up. So I think you will find that there'll be good capital growth in the industrial sector as well.
And that's interesting, because you are just basically building a box. You're not building bathrooms and kitchens and fit outs and...
one bathroom and
but you
one
will the whole building.
Correct. There's no car per...
Not per 100 square metres.
That's right, yeah. We've done that, and so I don't know if you know about the Harrington Collection, the very high-end residential development. So that was our last residential development. It's a $350 million project. We're selling
Is that in Camden?
No, it's in the Rocks.
Harrington
Street, the
okay,
Rocks.
Harrington Street. I thought you meant Harrington, the suburb.
So we've got a couple of penthouses there. One's, on the market for 30-odd mil. And so we've done the high-end product there. We've got a commercial suite that, we're just fitted out. We've also got retail there that have been now fully tenanted. We've got 2 restaurants and a gift shop. So we've done the really high-end, but yeah, so we understand that space very well, and but industrial, of course, is our sweet spot, and if you like, today is our core business,
and performs very well.
It performs very well,
especially for you're saying, especially for an investor.
Absolutely. Very. I mean, as an investor, if you're an investor and you're buying an industrial warehouse as opposed to residential, I can personally say that it's a lot less headache. I mean, it's 4 concrete walls, it's a concrete floor, and you got 1 bathroom with some white tiles, essentially, right? So there's not much that goes wrong with it.
Yeah, and they're not air conditioned, are they?
No, the offices are,
yeah,
but obviously not the warehouse.
Not the warehouse itself.
Yeah.
Danny Hanna, thanks very much, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.